How do I do proper Hisbonenus before davening in the morning? First of all, I want to make an advertisement. There is a sefer which came out in the last decade, which is called the Reb Shlomo Chaim. It's a 2-volume set about what a lot of people would consider the last real mashpia. Reb Shlomo Chaim Kesselman. This year in Iyar will be 50 years since he passed away, 50, which is kind of upsetting, but it's nevertheless true. Reb Shlomo Chaim was a mashpia of over 50 years, and his whole obsession in life was that Bachram should be Chassidische Bachram. And to him, one of the most important aspects of being a Chassidische Bacher was davening, and particularly Trachten Chassidus, being Hisbonenus in Chassidus before davening. In this biography called Reb Shlomo Chaim, they interview 4 or 5 of his Talmidim, and each one discusses the kinds of instructions that he gave. The reason I'm advising you to look at that sefer is because in that sefer there is a very explicit, detailed description of the process, of the different steps of Hisbonenus, from a younger bacher to an older bacher, from somebody who's a novice at thinking Chassidus to somebody who's more experienced, from a mashpia who actually was matzliach to be madrich hundreds and hundreds of talmidim over the course of a half a century in the union of Avodas HaTfilah and in Hisbonenus Kedem HaTfilah. So if you're serious about this, and I'm assuming that you are, I would advise you very strongly to get hold of the sefer. And if you have trouble with the Hebrew, have somebody help you with it. And because there are 4 or 5 different students being interviewed, so they say almost the same things, but there's a lot of repetition and a lot of detail that's presented about the order and the process of Hisbonenus. And it's one step closer to the source. When you're hearing it from the Talmidim of Reb Shlomo Chaim, I heard it from the Talmidim of Reb Melech, who was the Talmud of Reb Shlomo Chaim. But if you read it in the Sefer, you'll be one step closer to somebody who got Hadrach in Lubavitch. So that's my first statement, and probably my most important statement. As far as thinking Chassidus for davening, there's obviously a few critical points, and the most basic point is how much time do you have? And how much focus do you have? Not everybody is in the same Ma'amad Matzav. There's a difference between a bacher and a married person. There's different stages in a person's life. And I guess the most basic instruction for any of this is that it should be a liba de nafshe. One of the worst things that a person can do in his Avodas Hashem life is zayin bazich genart, to fantasize, to imagine madreges and avodah which are not on their level, which is a big mistake, and it's an unfortunate mistake because it's costly. You want to be honest about where you're holding an Avodas Hashem and do your Hisbonenus accordingly. Obviously, first of all, you're going to learn Chassidus. And the way Hisbonenus was taught to me when I was a little boy is you memorize a Maimer Chassidus, or even before that a Perek Tanya. You try to choose something which talks to you, that has an appeal to you, that's meaningful to you. In Tanya, you're going to memorize the words. In Chassidus, you're going to memorize the ideas. And you're going to think linearly. You're going to use your mind to think it through, like as if you're saying it. But you're not going to say it with your lips, you're just going to think it. In other words, if you would be thinking of Maimer Chassidus, you would imagine yourself reciting it. And the first thing that you'll notice is how little concentration you have, how quickly the mind wanders. And the process of Hisbonenus is developing that concentration. When I was a kid, one of my elder Rebachim said to me, think this page of Tanya from here to here. Every time your mind wanders, start from the beginning of the page again. And I don't think I davened that day. I'm saying that figuratively, but you learn about how little concentration you have. And one of the most important things about concentration, about Hisbonenus, is that you shouldn't try to squeeze out the emotion. You have to think. And focusing on Chassidus, thinking about Chassidus, in itself is very refining and uplifting. And whether or not a hisrakshus, an emotion comes, that's not your concern. Your concern is to do the Hisbonenus. And if a person is consistent about it, that means he does it every day. Over time, the Hisbonenus will give them a focus and bring them into davening in a way that's called asura mikan, lihiskar l'sham, meaning they'll go away from their environment, they'll be into davening completely, and the Hisbonenus will serve the purpose of helping them come closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's very, very important they don't try to squeeze out the hisrakshus, the emotion. That's not your concern. Another thing which I want to share, which I saw in the Rishima, which I think is very critical and very important when it comes to Hisbonenus, is the following. There was a Tomim in Lubavitch whose name was Rabbi Avram David. Rabbi Avram David Pevner, not to be confused with Rabbi Avram Baruch. Rabbi Avram David is one of the greatest Tmimim from the first Tmimim Mamish. The Friedrich Rebbe calls him Harav HaChosid HaTomim HaTalmid Vosik. That Lashon you don't even have by Chonya Marozov and by Yitzhak Masmid. HaTalmid Vosik. Avram David was Gora Greisa Chosid. He passed away very young. The Rebbe Rashab was asked about the very high madreges that he has in the first period of Kontesat Tefillah. Verwemmen, to say geschrieben, but again, ist verwemmen, for Avram David. Avram David was a moed Tomim. I mean, I heard some stories about him. When I was in Russia, I met a nephew of his. But he complained about concentration to the Rebbe Rashab, and the Rebbe Rashab told him a very important instruction. And the instruction was, quote, Tracht leicht. Tracht leicht means when you think, relax. One of the great mistakes people make is they want to be mechavetz themselves. Verkwetsch, squeeze yourself so that your mind won't wander. It's the same old argument about whether a person has more control over himself when he's sad or happy, intense or open. That the Misnagdim held that you have to be sad, and the Chassidim, the Baal Shem Tov taught joy. And the same is true here, that in the Hisbonenus, in the contemplation, you want to relax, and you want the Hisbonenus almost to happen. Now, initially it seems like a contradiction to concentration. It seems like this relaxation is a lack of attention. It's not true. It's just a lack of a waste of energy. And in the end, it's the only way to effectively do Hisbonenus. It's the only way to effectively learn. It's the only way to effectively think. Because nerves are a bad idea at any time. Certainly when a person is davening, and especially when a person is engaged in Hisbonenus. I want to reference that there's a Yem Yem from Chav Tammuz, where the Rebbe Rashab talks about Shloisha Mine Hisbonenuyes Heina. There's 3 Hisbonenus. There's Hisbonenus, the Yunus Lemud. This is a contemplation of learning, which is an exercise of rethinking what you learn. There's Hisbonenus Kedem Matfil, a contemplation of before davening, which is what I talked about. To use your mind to think in Evolukus, in Chassidus, as a preparation for davening. And then there's Hisbonenus B'techat Tefillah, a contemplation of Chassidus in the middle of davening. The third thing is a higher thing, and it's a deeper thing, and it's perhaps not for each person. Because I think that the Hisbonenus B'techat Tefillah is really thinking the Nekudah, not the Eirech V'Rechev. And for this to be constructive, a person has to be in a higher level. And the Hisbonenus Kedem Tefillah is like it says in Kontesat Tefillah, like the Rebbe brings it always in Kontesat Tefillah. It has to be Bariches, right? The middle Rebbe brings Hisbonenus has to be Bariches. Meaning to say, you can't think the point of a Maimed, you have to think the process. Because you want to go into the Maimed intellectually. And the most important thing is also Davening, Batzlacha, and it should be Limud and Avodah Amevel De Maisa, in Hidden Kiyam mitzvahs, and it's Lach and Avodas Hashem.